The Winchester Model 1873 barely moved in Wyatt Stone's weathered hands as he drew a bead on the horse thief. 200 yards across the valley, the man was trying to cut three prize quarter horses from Wyatt's herd. From his vantage point on the ridge, Wyatt controlled the situation completely. His finger tensed on the trigger. Then he heard it, the distant rumble of wagon wheels. The mail coach was arriving at the trading post early, carrying the woman who would become his wife. Sarah Miller from St. Louis, a correspondence bride he'd never met in person, but had exchanged letters with for 6 months. The timing couldn't have been worse. Wyatt's jaw tightened. The thief was moving his horses toward a narrow pass where pursuit would be nearly impossible. 6 months of planning his future hung in one direction, three horses worth more than most men made in a year in the other. He made his choice without hesitation. The rifle cracked once, the sound echoing off the Montana hills. 200 yards away, the thief clutched his shoulder and tumbled from his saddle. The horses scattered momentarily, then settled. "Justice doesn't wait for weddings," Wyatt muttered, already swinging onto his stallion. He'd deal with the wounded man later. Right now, there was a more pressing matter at the trading post. Wyatt rode hard, the cold autumn air stinging his face. At 40 years old, the former Union scout still sat a horse like he was born to it. His weathered face, framed by a neatly trimmed beard going silver at the edges, had seen 2 decades of frontier life after 4 years of bloody war. The ranch he'd built from nothing was now one of the most prosperous in the territory, a kingdom worthy of a queen. By the time he reached the trading post, the mail coach had already arrived. A woman stood beside it, but everything about her was wrong. Instead of the soft brown curls from the photograph, her hair was raven black, pulled back severely at the neck. Her posture wasn't demure, but alert, almost military in its precision. And when she turned to face him, her green eyes held not shyness, but sharp intelligence and wariness. "Mr. Stone?" she asked, her voice carrying an edge of authority uncommon in women from the East. Wyatt dismounted slowly, eyes never leaving her. "You're not Sarah Miller." "No." She met his gaze unflinchingly. "I'm Catherine Miller. Kate, Sarah's older sister." Wyatt noticed the slight bulge in her coat pocket, the unmistakable outline of a Colt revolver. This was no ordinary Eastern lady. "Where is Sarah?" His voice carried the weight of command that made ranch hands jump. "That depends on how much trouble you're willing to handle, Mr. Stone." She glanced around the bustling trading post. "And this isn't the place to discuss it." During the tense wagon ride to his ranch, Kate explained the situation in clipped, efficient sentences. She had written all the letters on behalf of her sister, who could neither read nor write. Their father, a Union Army captain, had died leaving substantial debts. Sarah was supposed to marry Wyatt to secure her future and help the family. Then 3 days ago, "A man came looking for you specifically." Kate's voice tightened. "Colonel Edward Harrington." The name hit Wyatt like a physical blow. Memories flooded back. A village of innocence in Tennessee, orders he'd refused to follow, a court-martial where he'd testified against his commanding officer. "Harrington." The word came out like a curse. "I thought he was in prison." "Political connections." Kate's mouth twisted bitterly. "He was released 2 years ago. Now he's looking for revenge and something else." Before Kate could elaborate, they crested the final hill overlooking Wyatt's ranch. Even from a distance, Wyatt could tell something was wrong. No smoke from the chimney, no movement around the corrals. "Something's not right," he muttered, reaching for the rifle secured to the wagon. They approached cautiously. Near the barn, Wyatt spotted the body of his foreman, lying face down in the dirt, a single bullet to the back of the head. "Get inside," he ordered Kate, driving the wagon straight to the house. Inside, Wyatt moved with practiced efficiency, retrieving hidden weapons from concealed compartments. Another Winchester, a shotgun, and a specially modified Sharps rifle he'd carried through the war. You know how to use this? He offered Kate a Colt 45. She checked the cylinder with practiced ease. My father didn't believe in raising helpless daughters. The distant thunder of approaching horses interrupted them. Through the window, Wyatt counted 8 riders approaching, led by a familiar figure, Sheriff Bill Hollister. The man's face was drawn, his posture unnaturally stiff. "Bill's a friend," Wyatt said, frowning. "Something's wrong." When the riders reached the yard, Hollister dismounted slowly. His eyes darted nervously to the armed men flanking him. "Wyatt Stone," he called, his voice carrying none of its usual warmth. "I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of murder and desertion during time of war." Wyatt stepped onto the porch, keeping Kate slightly behind him. "What's this about, Bill?" Hollister's eyes met his briefly, filled with apology. Then he whispered, barely audible, "They've got my boy, Wyatt. I had no choice." In that instant, one of the riders, a man with cold eyes and a mercenary's bearing, drew his pistol. The shot went wide as Wyatt lunged forward, dragging Hollister through the doorway as bullets splintered the wood around them. The gunfight was brief but vicious. Wyatt's first shot took down the triggerman, his second another rider attempting to circle behind the house. The remaining men fell back, taking cover behind wagons and water troughs. "Harrington's men," Hollister gasped, blood seeping from a graze on his arm. "They forced me to lead them here. Said they'd kill Danny if I didn't." "How many more are there?" Wyatt asked, reloading the Winchester with practiced efficiency. "At least 15 at their camp. And Wyatt," Hollister's face was grim, "Harrington has the girl and her brother, too." Kate's face went pale. "Michael? He has Michael?" Hollister nodded grimly. "They're being held at Eagle Ridge, the old mining camp." Wyatt exchanged a look with Kate. "Why is he doing this, Bill? Revenge isn't enough to gather this many guns." Hollister's eyes met Wyatt's. "It's about the gold, isn't it? The lost payroll from '64. The memory flashed vivid in Wyatt's mind. A Union Army payroll wagon ambushed in Tennessee. 12 men dead, 300,000 in gold missing. He'd been the only survivor, and the only one who knew where the gold was hidden. "I was supposed to report it after the war," Wyatt said quietly. "But when I returned, all records of the mission had disappeared. Someone wanted that gold to stay lost. Harrington," Kate concluded. "He thinks you kept it." "Not all of it," Wyatt admitted. "Just enough to start over. The rest is still hidden." A bullet shattered the window, sending glass fragments across the floor. The remaining riders were repositioning for another assault. "We need to move," Wyatt decided. "There's a back trail through the mountains. We can reach Eagle Ridge by dawn if we leave now." As they prepared to slip out the back, a sharp whistle caught their attention. One of Wyatt's ranch hands was approaching with his hands raised, escorted by 2 of Harrington's men. "Boss," the man called out, fear evident in his voice. "They say they'll let me live if you surrender." "Jenkins," Wyatt responded, recognizing the youngest of his hired hands. "How long have they been watching the ranch?" "3 weeks, sir," Jenkins replied, his eyes darting nervously. "They paid me to report your movements." A betrayal that explained how Harrington had known so much. Before Wyatt could respond, one of the gunmen shot Jenkins in the back. As the young man fell, the shooter called out, "That's what happens to the people around you, Stone. Surrender now or we burn everything." Wyatt's response was immediate and deadly. The Sharp's rifle roared once, and the shooter collapsed. In the confusion that followed, Wyatt, Kate, and Hollister escaped through a hidden cellar passage that led to a ravine behind the house. By nightfall, they had put 5 miles between themselves and the ranch. From a ridgeline, they watched as flames consumed the home Wyatt had spent years building. "I'm sorry," Kate said, standing beside him in the darkness. "Buildings can be rebuilt," Wyatt replied, his voice hard, "but Harrington has taken his last hostage." Their plan took shape as they rode through the night. Hollister knew the layout of Harrington's camp from his forced reconnaissance. Wyatt had mining explosives cached in an old prospector's cabin. Kate proved herself an excellent rider, keeping pace without complaint despite the punishing terrain. In the war, Wyatt explained as they prepared the explosives, we'd create a diversion on one side of an enemy camp, then strike from the opposite direction. Confusion is more valuable than ammunition. Kate nodded, checking the revolver Wyatt had given her. My father taught me to shoot, but never anything like this. War tactics have their uses, Wyatt replied. Even in peacetime. Dawn found them overlooking Harrington's camp at Eagle Ridge, a collection of old mining cabins repurposed by the mercenaries. Through Wyatt's field glass, they identified the building where the hostages were held. I count 16 men, Hollister whispered. 4 on patrol, the rest sleeping or eating. I'll place the charges on the north side, Wyatt decided. When they blow, Bill, you take position on that ridge with the sharps. Pick off anyone who comes out shooting. Kate and I will circle around to the hostage cabin from the south. Kate's face was set with determination. What about Harrington? He'll be in the main cabin, Wyatt said. We get the hostages first, then Harrington. The explosion, when it came, transformed the peaceful morning into chaos. The north side of the camp erupted in flame and splintered wood. Men poured from cabins, weapons drawn, rushing toward the destruction. Wyatt and Kate moved like shadows along the southern perimeter. The sharp crack of the Sharp's rifle from the ridge told them Hollister was doing his part, keeping the gunman's attention divided. The hostage cabin was guarded by a single man, who fell to Wyatt's knife before he could raise an alarm. Inside, they found Sarah, Michael, and young Danny Hollister bound to chairs, gagged but unharmed. Thank God, Kate whispered, quickly cutting Michael's bonds while Wyatt freed the others. Sarah, a younger, softer version of Kate, sobbed with relief. I knew you'd come. We need to move now, Wyatt urged, handing Danny a small revolver. Can you shoot, boy? The teenager nodded grimly, checking the cylinder with shaking hands. They had almost reached the tree line when a shout went up. Gunfire erupted around them as Harrington's men discovered the escape. Wyatt pushed the freed hostages ahead, while he and Kate provided covering fire. Kate proved deadly accurate with the Colt, dropping 2 pursuers with clean shots. Michael, though only 14, grabbed a fallen man's pistol and joined the defense, showing courage beyond his years. They had almost reached the ridge where Hollister waited when disaster struck. A bullet caught Wyatt in the side, staggering him. As Kate moved to help him, a commanding voice froze them all. That's far enough. Colonel Edward Harrington stood 20 yards away, a Winchester leveled at them. Beside him, Sheriff Hollister knelt in the dirt, hands bound, a gun to his head. Predictable as always, Stone, Harrington said, his aristocratic Southern accent unchanged by the years. Always the hero, rushing to save the innocent. Wyatt straightened, pressing a hand against his bleeding side. It's over, Harrington. The territorial governor already has evidence of your crimes. Bluffing till the end. Harrington's smile was cold. No matter. Once I have the gold, I'll be beyond their reach. Drop your weapons, all of you. Slowly they complied. Harrington's remaining men, Wyatt counted 7, moved in cautiously. Now, Stone, Harrington continued, you're going to take me to the gold. The rest stay here as insurance. Take me instead, Kate stepped forward. He's wounded. He'll slow you down. Kate, no, Sarah pleaded. The lady volunteers, Harrington mocked. How touching. But I need Stone. He's the only one who knows where it's hidden. Wyatt locked eyes with Kate briefly, a silent message passing between them. Then he turned to Harrington. It's in a cave, 2 miles east. I'll take you there. As they departed, Wyatt walking ahead at gunpoint, he heard Michael whisper to Kate, the dynamite, in my boot. The boy had managed to conceal a stick of dynamite during the rescue. It might be enough. The cave entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for a man to pass through. Inside, the passage widened into a natural chamber where, Years ago, Wyatt had hidden the remnants of the Union payroll. "After you, Colonel," Wyatt said, standing aside. Harrington's eyes gleamed with avarice as his lantern illuminated wooden crates stacked against the far wall. "All these years," he breathed, "you could have been living like a king." "Blood money," Wyatt replied, "paid for with the lives of good men." Harrington laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally in the confined space. "Good men? There are no good men in Warstone, only survivors and fools." As Harrington approached the crates, Wyatt tensed, ready to move. But the colonel was too experienced to turn his back completely. "You know what I'm going to do with this gold?" Harrington asked conversationally, prying open a crate with one hand while keeping his revolver trained on Wyatt. "Finance a political career. Senator Harrington has a nice ring to it. And once the Transcontinental Railroad's southern route passes through here, I'll control everything from the Mississippi to California." So it's not just about revenge, Wyatt realized, or the gold. The ranch, the town, all of it was just the beginning. Harrington's eyes gleamed with fanatical intensity. The war never ended, Stone. The battlefield just changed. "You're right about one thing," Wyatt said, shifting slightly. "There are only survivors and fools." With explosive speed, he lunged forward, driving his shoulder into Harrington's chest. Both men crashed against the cave wall, the lanterns shattering and plunging them into darkness. They grappled blindly, each seeking a killing hold. Harrington was younger, but Wyatt fought with the desperate strength of a man protecting not just himself but others. When Harrington's gun discharged, the muzzle flash illuminated their struggle briefly before darkness swallowed them again. Wyatt felt the bullet burn across his arm, but managed to drive his knee into Harrington's stomach. As the colonel doubled over, Wyatt's hands found his throat. "This is for the men who died at Cedar Creek," Wyatt growled, tightening his grip, "and for everyone whose life you've destroyed since." With a final surge of strength, Harrington broke free, scrambling toward the cave entrance. Wyatt pursued, but his wounds slowed him. He emerged from the cave to find Harrington standing in the open, revolver aimed at his heart. "Always the fool," Harrington wheezed, his face contorted with hatred. Before he could fire, a shot rang out from the trees. Harrington staggered, a look of surprise crossing his features as he fell to his knees. Behind him stood Kate, the Colt still smoking in her hand. "How?" Wyatt gasped. "Michael's dynamite created enough confusion," she explained, moving quickly to his side. "Sarah and Danny helped free the sheriff. It's over." As Harrington lay dying, Wyatt knelt beside him. "The war is over, Colonel. You lost." Back at the camp, they found Harrington's men either dead, captured, or fled. Sheriff Hollister, though battered, had taken command of the situation. "The territorial marshal is on his way," he reported. "Found papers in Harrington's tent linking him to 3 senators and half the railroad commission. This goes deeper than we thought." "Always does," Wyatt replied, wincing, as Kate bandaged his wounds. 6 months later, Wyatt stood on the porch of his rebuilt ranch house. The investigation into Harrington's conspiracy had exposed corruption, reaching all the way to Washington. The railroad had been forced to alter its route, bypassing Stone's land entirely. Michael, now 15, had become Wyatt's apprentice, showing natural talent with horses and an eagerness to learn ranching. Sarah had found happiness with the son of a local merchant, a gentle man who appreciated her kind heart. And Kate. Kate had stayed, not as a bride of convenience, but as a partner in running the ranch. Her Eastern education and Wyatt's frontier experience complemented each other perfectly. "Admiring your kingdom?" she asked, joining him on the porch. "Admiring the peace," he corrected. "Never thought I'd find it after the war." Kate studied his profile, noting how the hardness had softened around his eyes. "Peace suits you, Wyatt Stone." He turned to her, the setting sun casting gold across her features. "So does freedom, Catherine Miller." From his coat, he withdrew a small package wrapped in oilcloth. Had this made in town? Kate unwrapped it to find a finely crafted Colt, smaller than standard issue but deadly accurate. Engraved on the barrel were the words, "To the bravest companion I've known." "I'm not much for fancy words," Wyatt said awkwardly, "but I'd be honored if you consider making this arrangement permanent." Kate's smile was slow and genuine. "On one condition," she said, testing the weight of the gun in her hand. "You still need to teach me to shoot like you do." Wyatt laughed, the sound startling a flock of birds from a nearby tree. "Deal." As they stood together watching the sunset paint the Montana hills, Wyatt reflected that sometimes the wrong sister stepping off the wagon could turn out to be exactly right.